about Sony and Marvel coming together to do this and why you guys were able to bridge that? I know you guys have known each other for a long time.
I think that we've been friends for a long time. We've been fellow Spider-Man lovers for a long time. And Kevin came to me with a really fabulous idea. And ideas are everything.
Bringing Spider-Man into the universe, where he belongs, as all the fans know, interacting with the other characters for the very first time, and it seemed like the right time to do it.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. Everyone is freaking out because news just broke that Marvel lost the Spider-Man character back to Sony. It's really complicated. It goes all the way to the top between Kevin Feige at Marvel and Tom Rothman at Sony. We're doing the Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home Blu-ray giveaways. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave your best Spider-Man 3 theory on the video now that Marvel just apparently lost Spider-Man. Everybody's theories are going to have to change in a big way. What happened was the news just broke that Marvel will not be producing Spider-Man films anymore, meaning that's the sharing arrangement going up in flames. Kevin Feige supposedly isn't going to be involved in the making of Spider-Man 3. This is such a big deal that even Ryan Reynolds is chiming in, people asking, we're never going to get to see Spider-Man and Deadpool in a movie together. And he says, you can see it in my heart. So that lets you know the severity of the situation. But right now, there are 2 more Spider-Man films planned with Tom Holland and the director John Watts. So instead of doing a trilogy, they are planning on doing 4 films with Tom Holland's Spider-Man character. Beyond that, who knows? But one of those sequels is definitely going to be the Venom crossover that they were talking about during Spider-Man Far From Home press junkets. Kevin Feige said, yes, Sony is definitely planning on crossing over Tom Holland's Spider-Man with Venom at some point.
Come on, man, please.
And then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right up your head.
Look, man.
You will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Rolling down the street.
The reason why the deal fell through sounds more complicated than it is, but I'm just reading from the article that broke the news here. Disney asked that future Spider-Man films be 50-50 co-financing arrangement between the studios, meaning that Disney would reap some of the box office profits of future Spider-Man films. What had happened in the past is that part of the terms of the sharing arrangement were that Sony would take 100% of the box office take, Marvel would make all of its money on the Spider-Man toys, comic books, and other merchandise. Spider-Man Far From Home just made over $1 billion at the box office. Marvel and Disney don't see a dime from any of that. It all goes to Sony. Apparently, when Disney presented the terms of this new arrangement, 50-50 sharing the profits, Sony turned them down flat. And that's Tom Rothman, not Amy Pascal. Amy Pascal used to be the president of Sony, but after the big Sony hack, she got pushed out and just became a producer managing the Spider-Man films. Interestingly enough, she is actually Team Kevin Feige. She was all about bringing Spider-Man into the MCU, so for all the hate that she gets online, she was actually a big part of bringing Spider-Man to Marvel.
I thought, oh my God, this would be fantastic. This is the only way to do it. Because the truth is that when, we worked with Kevin on the first couple of movies because he worked with Avi and he worked at Marvel at that time. He's worked at Marvel that whole time. And, in the later years, when he was really busy becoming himself, he would, read scripts and help. But I wanted him to really help, and I wanted his real brain on this because there is nobody better at it.
The real villain of this story is Tom Rothman at Sony, so a lot of people now are worried, please don't let Avi Arad anywhere near these Spider-Man sequels. Maybe you're a fan of his, maybe not, but he's the one that's managing their Venom franchise. Technically, Amy Pascal is only involved with the core Spider-Man films. Then you have all the Venomverse stuff that's going on. That's all Avi Arad. Apparently, Sony came back and countered with an idea that they would give them a little bit of the box office gross. Disney said that wasn't enough, and then both parties went their separate ways. That's not the end of it, though. That's not the end of the story, even though a lot of people were reporting that Marvel completely lost Spider-Man. There are things that could change down the line to allow Spider-Man to continue to be in Marvel films, but it would require a really big late save in the game. For right now, it really does look like Spider-Man is out of the MCU, so it does make a little more sense why Kevin Feige wasn't talking about Spider-Man 3 during their big Marvel Phase 4 panel. Sony wants to produce these movies on a regular schedule, a Venom movie every 2 years, a Spider-Man film with Tom Holland every 2 years, so Spider-Man 3 will probably still drop summer 2021. Then 2 years after that, in 2023, their big Spider-Man 4 Venom crossover or Sinister 6 team-up movie or live-action Spider-Verse movie. Amy Pascal did reveal that they have plans for live-action Spider-Verse at some point. They didn't say anything about Miles Morales, they just said live-action Spider-Verse.
Any chance there's a multiverse in which Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and then your Spider-Man all meet together?
But would you want that though?
Would you want that? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah. Would we want that? I mean, as a fan, I would.
Is your no answer an answer in and of itself?
No, it would be amazing. It would be really, really cool, and it's something that the fans really want. So whether Marvel and Sony decide to do that,
or
it's up to them.
To do it.
It's not up to me. I can't walk in and be like, Kevin, this is what we're doing on the next one. Yeah. But it would be really awesome.
What's going to happen with Peter Parker in the MCU now, though? He just disappears from future Avengers events. Nobody gives him a call. Nobody talks about him. Per the terms of this sharing arrangement, they wouldn't even be able to mention Spider-Man in future Avengers movies. So imagine a scenario in Avengers 5 where they're all talking about the snap and the things that have come before. We're putting a new team together, and they can't talk about what Spider-Man did during Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Hey, wasn't there a kid named Peter Parker? Wasn't there a kid a couple years ago that Iron Man died and gave this billion-dollar orbital weapons platform to? What are we going to do about that? Should someone go grab those glasses from him? So outward reaction, obviously I'm really pissed off that things didn't work out between Disney and Sony. Of course it's going to be a bunch of business people to mess the deal up.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. And it's gone. Poof.
Don't blame Kevin Feige for this. He just delivered two of the highest earning Spider-Man films of all time. Spider-Man Far From Home is getting ready to be the biggest box office earner that Sony has ever had of any kind of movie, not just Spider-Man films, but is getting ready to beat Skyfall's record as biggest Sony movie of all time. So Kevin Feige delivered as promised. Give us $1 billion and we'll come back to the table. So biggest predictions about what's going to happen next is Spider-Man 3 will be closer to a Sinister 6 movie than you would have expected before. Because Kevin Feige isn't involved with the story, Sony clearly wants to leverage its biggest characters, and that is the Sinister 6 characters, people like Norman Osborn, and then their Venom franchise, because Venom earned so much money for them. It was such a big surprise. Of course, they're going to want to combine those franchises to try and get the synergy of even more box office profits. And while I am pissed about them losing Spider-Man, at least temporarily, I am still kind of excited about the idea of Spider-Man versus Venom and Spider-Man getting the symbiote eventually. The director of the movie already said that Kraven the Hunter was his lead pick for Spider-Man 3. Obviously, it's going to be more of a John Wick 3 movie with everybody coming for Spider-Man. J. Jonah Jameson will be back. It feels like it's a little too soon to do every Sinister 6 character, but if they spend enough money to get some of those actors back, they would probably show up in a post-credit scene, and you would see them all for real in Spider-Man 4 in some version of a Venom crossover, either using the multiverse, but I guess now that Sony technically has the character back, they can just say that Venom has been in San Francisco this whole time and he just shows up in New York City nearby where Peter Parker is, and then they go at it. You don't have to use the multiverse at all because that was still when the MCU was technically a separate entity from the Venom franchise and the Venomverse that Sony had. Tom Holland's contract, I believe, is up after Spider-Man 3, so he'll have to re-sign a new contract after that, and if he continues to be Spider-Man, they're not going to stop making Spider-Man films after that Spider-Man-Venom crossover, but they will have to figure out who's going to be the new director, who's going to be writing, and if they want to recast Spider-Man. But I would think that they would stay with Tom Holland as long as they give him enough money to stick around.
I honestly would play Spider-Man until, like, I can't walk anymore. I love this character so much, and it was, like, my childhood dream to play this character. You know, I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really loving what we can do with this movie and the people that we can kind of touch and the amazing things we're able to do with the platform that this movie gives us. So I'm just really enjoying it.
That doesn't cancel any of the plans for Marvel's Secret Wars. They can still do that movie. They can still do Spider-Man Symbiote in that way, way down the road, 6-7 years, because that movie is so far off that there's plenty of time for them to come back to the table and work out a new sharing arrangement for the Spider-Man character. So don't go throwing yourself out a window because this seems like the end of the world. They could still save the day in the last minute, but don't be surprised if Spider-Man 3 does wind up happening without Marvel. If they're able to come back to the table, it might not be till a little bit later than that. Because of this news, everyone post your new Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man 4 Venom crossover theories in the comments below. The funny thing about this is that I had recorded an entire Eternals video, literally just stopped the minute that this news broke, so I'll finish that video and post it tomorrow the next day. The big Marvel D23 Phase 4 panel is this weekend. They'll be dropping footage for the Phase 4 movies. I'll do videos for everything, but leave your requests in the comments below, and if you have big questions about the future of Spider-Man, I'm sure it'll take a couple Spider-Man videos this week to work through what's going to happen with the future of that franchise and that character in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While you wait for that, everybody click here to learn about why the Russos are talking about Nova in Avengers Endgame, and click here for my Spider-Man Far From Home post-credits scene. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.